Hello and welcome to the Law Lab. Here we dissect and unpack everything legal. My name is Risa Iris Ewonia, and today I am here to take you through customary pledges. What are customary pledges? A customary pledge is a situation which arises in the Ghanaian customary land law space where a person who owns another transfers possession of his property to the other person until he fully pays the amount he owes to the person. So in this case, the person who transfers his land to the other person is the pledgor, and the one who receives the land from the other is the pledgee. Or since the person who transferred the land to the other is owing that person will be the borrower, and the receiver of the land will be the lender. In Ghana, this practice is usually common within the Akan communities. The definition of customary pledges have been stated by S.K.B. Asante in his book Property Law and Social Goals in Ghana to be that a customary pledge, unlike its common law counterpart, involves the transfer of the possession of the security, which is the farm or landed property, to the pledgee, who is the lender, with full right of beneficial enjoyment until repayment of a loan. This right of beneficial enjoyment is additional to the lender's right to repayment of the capital. From this definition, you realize that the borrower, or in this case the pledgor, does not relinquish ownership of the land to the pledgee. He only gives him possessory rights. And this is also recognized in the case of Nsoa and two others versus Bamba and Ano. In that case, the court stated that the pledgor does not give or does not grant ownership of his land to the pledgee. He only gives him possessory rights, and the pledgee will hold that land until the pledgor pays the full amount he owes to the pledgee. So it is important to know that you are only giving possessory rights of the land. You can only live on the land or maybe produce something on the land, but you do not own the land. We do not pass title to you. It is only possession you take from the land. An integral characteristic of a customary pledge is that it's perpetually redeemable, which basically means that if you give possessory rights of your land to another person because you own that person, obviously, when you pay the original amount that you owe to the person in full, not in bits, but when you pay the full amount, you ought to redeem your land, or the person must give the land back to you. That is recognized in the case of Janku versus Ajakweju. Another characteristic of a customary pledge is that the pledgee cannot sell the land to another person. As I stated earlier, since the pledgee does not acquire ownership of the land, but only possession, he cannot sell the land to another person. This is premised on the Latin principle of law, which is nemo dat quo non habet. Basically, you cannot give what you do not have. So if the pledgee does not acquire any ownership of the land, he cannot sell the land to another person. These are the main characteristics of customary pledges. Before the passage of the Land Act 2020, many were of the view that a customary pledge does not exist in the country. However, with the passage of the new law, a customary pledge is not expressly mentioned in the Act. There are certain incidences that will arise or which cause certain matters to come up in the issue of a customary pledge. People tend to ask that, what if you give your land to the pledgee and the pledgee negligently or fraudulently uses it in a manner that will degrade the land? What will then happen in that instance? It is the view of the courts that the pledgee will have to replace it or repair whatever damage he caused to the land. So do not expect that if a person owes you and the person gives you his land until he fulfills or until he pays the full amount of the loan, in that case, you can use the land in any manner you want without considering that your actions or inactions can damage the land. You must protect it until the person fully repays the amount to you. If the person is not done paying for the land, the person cannot come back for it. So if the pledgor has not paid the full amount on the loan, he cannot expect that when he requests from the land from the pledgee, it will be granted back to him. However, in the course of the pledgee having the land suffered some deterioration, which was not as a result of the pledgee's negligence or his intentional acts, or the actions on the land were from natural causes. The pledgee will not be liable because the pledgee is not the one who caused the damage to the land. So naturally, the pledgee ought not to be liable for any of those actions. If the pledgor breaches the agreement or he does an action which causes or which shows that he is not intending to pay the loan, or he wants to take the land as he has given as collateral to the payment of the loan from the pledgee has the right to institute an action in court to recover the loan from the pledgor. These are certain incidences that arise out of customary pledges. Some are of the view that since they have not been expressly mentioned in the new Land Act 2020 Act 1036, it means that they are not applicable. However, even though they have not been mentioned, there are still some communities in the country which practice customary pledges, and thus the law must be made to cater for those situations. By way of recap, I explained what a customary pledge is, which is where a person gives his landed property to another until the person pays the full amount he owes to that person. And I also made mention of the fact that the person who gives the land, who is the pledgor, does not give ownership of the land to the pledgee. He only gives possessory rights. I also mentioned that a pledgor cannot come back for his land where he has not fully paid the amount he owes to the pledgee. I also made mention of the fact that if the pledgee negligently or intentionally causes deterioration to the landed property, he must be made to replace or repair any damage he caused to it. Thank you for joining us on this wonderful session today. Please do not forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos to your friends so that they will learn more about customary pledges. Have a nice day.